All right, today we're diving deep into a truly baffling mystery of the brain. It's a neurological condition that just completely flips your body's clock upside down. Where that line between being awake and being asleep, well, it just sort of vanishes in a flash.
I mean, just think about this for a second. Imagine being literally paralyzed by joy. Sounds impossible, doesn't it? But what if I told you that just laughing at a good joke could make your knees give out and your muscles go totally limp? This really bizarre reality, it's actually a huge clue in solving the puzzle of narcolepsy.
All right, let's get right into it. The first thing you've got to understand about this condition is that we are talking about something way more intense than just feeling a little sleepy.
So, at its heart, narcolepsy is a chronic neurological condition. Basically, it messes up your brain's master switch for controlling when you're asleep and when you're awake. And look, this isn't the kind of tired you feel after pulling an all-nighter. No, this is a powerful, relentless sleepiness that can just hit you out of nowhere at any time.
And the numbers here might actually surprise you. It affects about 1 in every 2,000 people. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but here's the crazy part. It's believed that maybe half of all cases are never even diagnosed. Can you imagine? People can go for like 8 to 10 years with these symptoms before they finally get the right answer. So if we're treating this like a mystery, we need to look at the clues. And there are 4 classic symptoms, 4 key pieces of evidence that help specialists crack this neurological case. It's worth noting, though, that not everyone has all 4. In fact, only about 15% of people do. Okay, clue number 1, and this is the big one. Excessive daytime sleepiness, or EDS. This is the absolute hallmark of narcolepsy. Everyone who has it has this. And we're not talking about a few yawns in the afternoon. We're talking about sudden, overwhelming sleep attacks that you just can't fight. They can happen right in the middle of a conversation, while you're eating, even while driving.
And that brings us to clue number 2, which is the wild one we started with, cataplexy. This is a sudden temporary loss of muscle control, and it's triggered by strong emotions. So a really good laugh, a big surprise, even getting angry, any of it could cause your jaw to go slack, your head to droop, or yeah, in really severe cases, you could just collapse. It's basically like the paralysis you experience during dream sleep, but it's leaking out into your waking life. So weird.
All right, clue number 3 is sleep paralysis. Just try to imagine this. You're waking up, your mind is totally aware, but you are completely frozen. You can't move, you can't speak, not for a few seconds or even minutes. As you can probably guess, it is absolutely terrifying. And this happens to about 25% of people with narcolepsy.
And our fourth and final clue, hypnagogic hallucinations. Okay, these are super vivid, almost realer than real dreamlike experiences that happen right as you're drifting off to sleep. They feel so incredibly real, like you might see someone standing in your room or hear voices. It just completely blurs that line between what's a dream and what's reality.
So, with all these bizarre clues, you have to ask, what on earth is happening inside the brain to cause all this? Well, our investigation is about to go microscopic, because scientists found that a really critical piece of the puzzle was actually missing. Let me introduce you to a chemical called hypocretin. You might also hear it called orexin. Think of it as a key chemical messenger in your brain. Its main job, to act like the on switch for wakefulness, keeping you alert and engaged. But here's the thing. In people with the most common form of narcolepsy, the brain cells that make this chemical are almost entirely gone. And this chemical, hypocretin, is actually the dividing line between the 2 main types of this disorder. So you've got narcolepsy type 1. That's where you either have that cataplexy we talked about, or tests show you have super low levels of hypocretin. Then there's narcolepsy type 2. You still have that overwhelming daytime sleepiness, but your hypocretin levels are normal and you don't get cataplexy. Which, of course, leads us to the million-dollar question in this whole mystery. Why? Why are these vital, stay-awake brain cells just disappearing in people with type 1 narcolepsy? Who or what is the culprit? Well, with this missing chemical as our main lead, investigators have zeroed in on a prime suspect. And get this, the attack isn't coming from some outside virus or bacteria. Nope, the call is coming from inside the house. The leading theory, by far, is that narcolepsy is an autoimmune disease. You probably heard that term before. It's when your body's own security system, your immune system, which is supposed to fight off germs, gets completely confused and starts attacking your own healthy cells by mistake. It's basically a case of mistaken identity.
The theory goes that the immune system's police force misidentifies that tiny, super important cluster of brain cells that make hypocretin. It flags them as dangerous intruders and then takes them out. It's a really tragic case of friendly fire happening right inside the brain.
Okay, so how strong is the case against our prime suspect? Let's take a look at the evidence and see how it all stacks up.
See, autoimmune diseases have a sort of typical MO, a profile. They tend to cluster in families, they often have a genetic component, and a lot of times they need some kind of environmental trigger, like an infection, to really kick them off. And the damage? It's always an inside job, done by the body's own T cells or B cells. And just as an interesting side note, they're way more common in women.
And when you lay the evidence for narcolepsy next to that profile, it's a perfect match. There is a very strong genetic link, a specific gene that shows up in a huge number of patients. But just having the gene isn't enough. It seems to need a trigger, and scientists suspect things like infections could be the culprit that sets the whole process in motion. Put it all together, and you get the leading theory, an autoimmune strike team taking out those crucial hypocretin cells.
So, with the evidence pointing so strongly to an autoimmune cause, what does that mean for people living with it? How is this actually diagnosed, and how do you manage it day to day?
Well, getting a diagnosis is a pretty involved process. It all starts with the doctor getting a super detailed history of your symptoms. After that, there's usually an overnight sleep study, a polysomnogram, mostly to make sure it's not something else, like sleep apnea. But the real key is the next day test. It's called a multiple sleep latency test, or MSLT. It's basically a nap study, where they have you take a series of naps and they measure two things: how fast you fall asleep, and, this is the critical part, how fast you get into that REM dream state.
Now, there's no cure for narcolepsy, but it is definitely manageable. The approach is usually a 1-2 punch of lifestyle adjustments and medication. Things like having a rock-solid sleep schedule, planning for short naps during the day, and getting regular exercise can make a huge difference. And then that's combined with medications, things like wake-promoting drugs to help with the sleepiness, and sometimes certain antidepressants, which, funny enough, are really good at controlling cataplexy and those other dream state symptoms.
And that really brings our investigation to a close. We've seen that narcolepsy is so much more than just being tired. It's this fascinating, complex story of the body's own defense system attacking the brain's on switch. It's just an incredible reminder of how deeply connected our immune system and our brain really are. And it leaves you with this one big, lingering question. If our own immune system can so profoundly change our state of consciousness, what else don't we know about that mysterious link between our body and our mind?